Chapter 17. How to Reprogram Your Mind. Be not deceived. God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Galatians 6:7. So you may ask yourself, how do I open the door and get into my subconscious? There's a variety of ways I have found. Number 1, shifting your brainwaves. Number 2, repetition. Number 3, fear. Number 4, emotionally elevated experience, a thought combined with an emotion. Number 5, suggestion, a form of hypnosis. Number 6, symbolism. Number 7, storytelling. Number 8, metaphors. Let's dig deeper into each one. Number 1, shifting your brainwaves. When you alter your brainwaves during something like meditation/breath work, your waves tend to slow down. I am hoping by now you have experienced this with one of the links I have supplied. Delta brainwaves are the slowest brainwaves. They are generated in deep meditation and dreamless sleep. Healing and regeneration occur when the brain is in this state. Theta waves also occur in sleep and during relaxation. They are indicative of an inner focus. Dreams and vivid imagery occur in this state. This is when your inner world is more real than your outer world. In a sense, your body is asleep, but your mind's awake. It's that moment between wakefulness and sleep. And if you can sustain theta, you can program your nervous system because your analytical mind is off. All the information is going right into your nervous system from this state. The issue is, how do you sustain a theta pattern? You need to do something that slows your brainwaves down, such as meditation or breath work. Alpha waves occur during quiet, thoughtful times. Alpha waves indicate that the brain is in a resting state. This is a state a lot of artists enjoy, late at night. This state also occurs early in the morning, which is why meditation is recommended first thing in the morning. Beta waves are the most common pattern in the normal waking state. They occurred when one is alert and focused on problem solving. Right now, you are likely in beta. Gamma brainwaves are the fastest and are associated with higher levels of consciousness and awareness. By going to AntonWisbicki.com/CEO meditation, you can experience the power of shifting your brainwaves. Number 2, repetition. We have all heard that repetition is the mother of mastery. It's true. Without the step, you cannot reprogram those hardwired subconscious identities. You must work against the programming every single day to not fall back into your old ways. I like to think of it like this. You have to become the star of your own movie. Not the extra, the star. You have to be the main character, and that means you must adopt the personality of the ideal you, and this takes daily effort. It can be hard to do this if you are not feeding your mind and body and spirit daily. Remember, your conditioning in your subconscious is habitual. It is always playing beyond your awareness. So to adopt a new set of thoughts, you need to feed your mind daily with books, audiobooks, and events to shift that programming. Through repetition of any idea impressed over and over on your subconscious, it must eventually come into form through law. This repetition can happen in many forms, and ideally, you want to develop a type of routine that allows you to repeat daily all 8 steps to reprogram your subconscious. This is essentially where the idea of affirmation comes in. Bob Proctor always said, if you tell yourself a lie long enough, eventually your subconscious will believe it. I personally have found it takes more than that, but the power of daily repetition on working against your old identity will absolutely start to shift who you believe you are. This takes tremendous willpower, but a simple step that cannot be overlooked. Number 3, fear. I hope by now you understand that fear is just another control mechanism. It hits on the most primal parts of our brain, shifting what we believe moment by moment, influencing all our actions. There's an actual saying in journalism that says, if it bleeds, it leads. The news is not meant to inform us, but instead scare us because that keeps the viewer's attention glued to the television, making those companies more money. When fear is present, real or imagined, rational and higher cognitive capacities shut down. At one point, this served us very well because we were hunter-gatherers trying to survive from animals trying to eat us and changes in our environment, like the weather. So we had to constantly be on edge, scanning the environment for any threats. Well, what once helped us evolve now does more harm than good. This same fear response is triggered in people today by a social media post or something from the news. No real threat, just in the mind. Well, biochemically, the exact same response is happening in your brain and body and influencing your actions. Our brain is 2 million plus years old, and the most primitive parts are rooted in survival are being triggered daily for most people, conditioning them to limitation. When you're in a state of survival, you are not in a state of creation. For example, just the thought of public speaking is enough to send a stress signal with a shot of adrenaline through most people's systems, reporting that danger is near biochemically. A completely subjective experience now feels like an objective fact, influencing your subsequent actions. This is how subjective fears mold how we see objective reality. You must guard the door of your mind with everything you have. A mind undirected will naturally go towards fear. A better way to let fear stop programming you into limitation is to use the fear. This goes back to chapter 13. Almost all successful people are actually scared. They're terrified they will not succeed, so they use their fear to push them towards greatness. That's a much better strategy. You have to go to a place in your mind to see how powerful your life will be if you don't overcome this fear and what it will cost you. Use fear. If you are feeling fear, good. It means you're on the edge of a paradigm shift and must walk forward with nobility and courage to embody your new paradigm. Number 4, emotionally elevated experience, a thought combined with an emotion. When you're in a state of gratitude, it is impossible to be in a state of fear simultaneously. I have processes to help people make this state effortless, where they're not just thinking they're grateful, but feeling grateful. When you're in this state, your heart sends energy to your brain's fear centers, signaling them to turn off. When you do this, your body moves out of a state of survival and into an expanded energy. In these moments, you start to understand new meanings about your past and your potential in your future. We can all recall moments in our life that left us feeling super grateful, moments of grace that maybe gave us a new belief about God or people, such as an experience of, quote, God is guiding me, end quote. When we have experiences like this, our beliefs change, shifting what is happening subconsciously, which will directly influence our actions. Expanded states of consciousness can set an entirely new baseline for our nervous system because these elevated emotional experiences allow us to create a new story about ourselves, our past pain, and who we think we are, ultimately shifting our identity. Number 5, suggestion, a form of hypnosis. This can be put in the same category as the placebo effect or hypnosis, although not identical by definition. The placebo is the perfect example of the true power of suggestion. It demonstrates how the subconscious has the ability to override the chemistry of our physical body. An anesthesiologist named Dr. Beecher discovered the placebo effect during World War II when he ran out of morphine amidst Germany being bombed. Silberman, placebos are getting more effective. Drug makers are desperate to know why. In a moment of desperation, Beecher's nurse used salt water as a painkiller for a soldier, and it worked. The wounded soldier instantly went into relief. The mind's belief in the morphine working overrode the conscious processes, and the subconscious took over, allowing the soldier to go into euphoria, although it was just simply salt water. The larger the quote suggestion is, the better the results are. For example, if it's a placebo surgery where they put people under with anesthetics, cut them open, and do nothing, the placebo subjects respond stronger compared to things like just a pill. So, we can conclude that their belief is affecting the outcome. If you want to look into this further, check out the Houston Veterans Affairs Medical Center trial, which enrolled 180 subjects with significant pain from osteoarthritis. 120 patients received the real surgery. The other 60 had a, quote, fake surgery. Both patients experienced the same relief, but more astounding was that the people who didn't have the surgery 1 year later were doing better at stairs and walking. Unfortunately, these studies were halted, and the doctor stopped performing them. There's no money in a change of belief. In summary, an accepted suggestion causes the subconscious to believe in an idea, influencing how the brain and body work. Imagine if you could become your own placebo for more success. What if you suggested an ideal identity every day that will move you closer to your goals? How would this new belief, quote, identity, impact your actions and therefore your results? Here's a less extreme example of how suggestion works. Asian women that were reminded before their math test that they were Asian increased their test scores. The only variable was if they believed in the stereotype that Asians are good at math. Now, that is just a stereotype. It's not actually true. But simply filling in their ethnicity before the test sent a signal to the subconscious of a specific belief, influencing how they perceive the test, leading to a noticeable change in their test scores. Countless studies have shown that suggestion influences how we operate. Where are you being influenced positively or negatively by suggestions from others and yourself? Number 6, symbolism. What invokes a more powerful response in your brain and body? Seeing a symbol of the cross, or if I say the word Christ? Symbols speak to our subconscious. They invoke deep emotions. Repeatedly seeing symbols will start to program you on a subconscious level into different energies. I believe symbolism bridges the physical plane to the spiritual plane. In my events, I have people create their ideal self-characteristics and then apply a symbol to it. The symbol translates a meaning unique to them, helping the programming process occur in the subconscious. Symbols help our brain understand and make sense of the enormous amount of information they are exposed to daily. They serve as mental shortcuts that elicit feelings of recognition, comprehension, and emotion. Symbols can take many different shapes, such as letters, gestures, signs, objects, and words. They have the capacity to communicate with people of different racial and cultural backgrounds despite linguistic hurdles. Symbols that are widely recognized, such as the Apple logo, immediately elicit connections and meanings. Emojis have increased the use of symbolism in communication, which gives our messages deeper layers of meaning. Big companies are masters of symbology because they want you to associate pleasure with their brands. This is why Super Bowl commercials are so expensive, and many of the commercials don't even talk about the product. How is this possible? It's because these companies understand how to program your subconscious, so they use all these steps and then they quote brand your subconscious with their symbol, aka logo, of their company, and that unconsciously affects your buying habits. Symbols carry emotional meanings in addition to informative meanings. They are closely related to our emotions since they reflect philosophies, religions, and political ideas. People of groups may interpret symbols differently, linking them to a particular sentiment or emotions. For Nazi sympathizers, the swastika symbolizes racial power and purity, while invoking fear in the Jewish community. While at the same time, the swastika is used as a symbol of divinity and spirituality in Indian religions, including Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, meaning, quote, conducive to well-being. Symbols elicit strong feelings, bring people together or apart, and act as an effective instrument as a variety of situations, all happening beyond words. There's much more to this, but all you need to know for now is that understanding the significance of symbols and their effects on us helps us become more conscious of our responses and interpretations, which allows us to reprogram our subconscious. Number 7, storytelling. Stories connect to our subconscious. Even deeper than that, I believe they speak to the soul. When you are digesting any form of story, there's always two stories being told at the same time. There's the overt story, the logical one that you receive at face value, and then the covert story, the subconscious story that involves your emotions, that is speaking more directly to your nervous system. The covert story is the one that conditions you or programs you. We can relate to almost every hero's journey because we are also on that journey. Part of the reason you have memory is so that you either don't make the same mistake twice or do what once worked in the past. Your memories, quote, including that of the soul, are embedded in the subconscious. And when we speak/watch or learn in the form of stories, it speaks directly to the subconscious. I believe this is because stories speak to the truest potential inside of us, that we can have, be, or do anything we want. And when you hear a good story, it's always some form of adaptability, quote, the hero's journey, which again speaks to the real you. But a bad story influences people negatively and manipulates them into actions they wouldn't always do. For example, this is played out consistently in things like politics, the news, or anti-hero movies, and even normal movies. There are many times in films you will notice that the villain is always super rich and yet evil. On a subtle level, this sends a message to your subconscious tying wealth to being bad. And what we know for sure is that when listening to stories, they reside directly in the subconscious, not in the conscious. It's similar to a trance-like state. When someone is telling you a story or you're watching a movie, your focus is shifting from the external environment to an internal one. This is why you can cry during a movie, because it is invoking something inside of you on a subconscious level. I had this weird fascination with Spider-Man as a young boy. I watched these movies nonstop, read all the comments, and was obsessed with the character. As I grew older, I constantly struggled with sharing who I truly was with people. For example, I wouldn't share my opinions, only let people see me in a certain light, and I very much, quote, wore a mask. This really affected me starting my coaching business because I didn't want my past teachers to see I was more than just a social media guy, and even my past girlfriends and my parents. I hid my true identity from everyone. One day, I was at an event, and there was this process taking place, and essentially, I realized that subconsciously, I had an archetype of what a, quote, superhero, Spider-Man, looked like in my subconscious. The connection was that the older I got, the more I had to hide from the people I love, exactly what Spider-Man did. His closest friends had no idea who he was. Deep down, it bothered him, just like it bothered me. Once I identified this poor story, I could look towards different role models and ask myself, quote, what's a different superhero I can model? So instead of a fictional character, I chose a real-life person, studied them, learned their story, and began to model them. Identifying your disempowering stories and your identity is just as important as adopting new empowering ones. If you don't know where you are starting, how could a GPS ever guide you to where you need to go? You must know where you truly begin to start your journey. Stories shape your reality. Human thinking is simply a matter of narrative, quote, the story you tell yourself. The stories either limit us or empower us. Your story's meaning equals emotion, and your emotions equal your life. I believe our personal stories supersede our individuality, and I don't want to get too complex here, but I have seen this play out time and time again in my life, specifically with how I overcame some personal hardships not shared in this book. I very much had to adopt, quote, characters to save my life, and doing so led me down this line of work. For example, what would Marcus Aurelius do in this situation? How about Elon Musk? What about Steve Jobs? This would allow me to see through new lenses of a different story. Stories equal emotion. Emotions equal life. Whatever emotions you habitually feel shape your life experience, and your emotions come from the story playing in your head moment by moment. This is also why trauma forms havoc in our life if we do not change the meaning of what happened to us. When we go through trauma, a meaning or a story is formed. Usually, it is very disempowering, and that disempowering story will lock us into an identity. People will say, quote, I am this way because X happened to me, end quote, always keeping their evolution at a distance. Remember, we as humans get to decide what things mean. If we don't resolve the meaning and have something disempowered playing, it will disempower us. What's wrong is always available, but so is what's right. Questions like, quote, is this the end or the beginning, end quote. After a relationship, quote, ends, it will dictate how you feel, which is a story or a meaning directing your responses. Poor meaning / story equals poor focus, equals poor emotions, equals poor results. When we have a poor meaning, you will see it tangibly manifest in your language, and disempowering language is usually the first step in recognizing you have a disempowering story. It goes back to the victim mindset. Pay attention to the emotions driving your language. It's telling a story. So, what is the story you tell yourself about why you can or why you can't? The story you're telling yourself reaffirms why you can or can't change. It's time to update your stories and choose empowering ones instead of disempowering ones. Because when we are focused on a set outcome, we will miss the truth of the situation that will give us a whole new perspective. It's called cognitive bias, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Take control of your stories today and never let them be a substitute for the actual facts. Look at what happened to one of my participants' brains when I took them through this process at one of my events to help him adopt new stories. Here's his scan before. Results. This client exhibited mild to moderate hyperactivity in the theta and alpha frequency bands at baseline, most notably emanating from the frontal lobes and sensory-motor cortex. He showed normal activity in the beta frequency band and significantly elevated gamma waves localized to the bilateral anterior temporal lobes and the left frontal lobe. Implications. Hyperactivity refers to a decrease in the power or amplitude of brain waves in particular frequency band. In this case, the client exhibits reduced activity in the brain and the alpha frequency bands associated with relaxation, meditation, and focused attention. Hyperactivity is most notably seen in the frontal lobes and sensory-motor cortex. The frontal lobes are involved in cognitive functions such as decision-making, planning, and problem-solving, while the sensory-motor cortex is involved in processing sensory information and controlling motor movements. Significantly elevated gamma waves localized to bilateral anterior temporal lobes in the left frontal lobe may suggest increased activity in areas of the brain associated with memory, learning, and emotional processing. Hyperactivity in the theta and alpha frequency bands may generally suggest a reduced capacity for relaxation, focused attention, and mental flexibility. In contrast, elevated gamma waves in the anterior temporal lobes and left frontal lobes may suggest increased emotional reactivity or cognitive processing. After scans. Implications. The findings suggest that the client experienced significant changes in brainwave activity during the exercises compared to their baseline brain map. Normalizing hyperactivity in the theta and alpha frequency bands throughout the brain is a positive result and suggests improved cognitive processing and attention control. The observed hyperactivity in the beta frequency bands, specifically in the parietal lobes, may indicate increased arousal and attention. We also observed significant changes in brain connectivity. Comparing the initial brain scan to the one recorded during the CEO squared process, the baseline brain map indicated severe hyperconnectivity throughout the brain. Global brain hyperconnectivity may indicate a dysfunction in the brain's ability to coordinate and integrate different brain regions, which can lead to various cognitive and emotional difficulties. For example, it has been associated with symptoms such as decreased attention, memory deficits, and impaired social cognition. During the session, the client exhibited much milder defects in connectivity compared to the initial assessments. The observed significant changes in brain connectivity between the initial brain scan and the one recorded during the CEO squared process are noteworthy, particularly considering the baseline brain map indicated severe hyperconnectivity throughout the brain. The improvement in connectivity suggests that the client's brain was better able to coordinate and integrate different regions during the meditation process, which may have a positive implication for their cognitive and emotional functioning. In addition, the improvement in connectivity observed during the exercise sessions suggests that the client may experience improvements in attention, memory, creative problem solving, and social cognition. We can conclude that these brain scans prove that the power of how in changing your narratives and stories, your physical brain works differently and, as a byproduct, your mind. Number 8, metaphors. When I coach people, they will sometimes speak to me in metaphors about their situation. This tells me two things. Number one, it's going to be very easy for them to grow because I will speak back to them in metaphors, directly changing what's happening on a subconscious level. And number two, what's holding them back is the analogy between two unrelated things, trapping the neural pathway in one place. They are stuck in a pattern. Metaphors and analogies have the ability to make super quick connections in the brain. reinstalling two ideas that are usually disempowering and unrelated. For example, someone says, "Well, I'm just stuck in my business." Now, we all know logically they're not actually stuck. They can quite literally, quote, move. But when they speak in these terms, it literally makes neural connections, making them feel actually stuck. I'll usually just make a joke and say, "Okay, come over here then," guiding them somewhere else in the room. Then I'll say, quote, "See, you're not stuck, you just moved." This usually will allow an opening to occur where their pattern is temporarily broken and something new can begin to take form with the guidance I'm providing. Because of the quickness and connections that happens in the brain with metaphors, it makes it really easy to, quote, draw conclusions. The issue is that the conclusions are false neural associations that completely disempower us. It's a way for our brain to take a shortcut to justify its own BS, quote, belief systems. But the reverse is also true. It can positively use metaphors to create new meanings and connections. It will empower you. They allow us to view problems through new lenses and think creatively. What's an empowering metaphor you can adopt for your success? Question the metaphors you are making about your situation in your business and your life, and watch how things will start to change for you. Again, this is because metaphors speak to your beliefs located in your subconscious. If you change your metaphors, you change your results. Join me at my next virtual or in-person event to begin the process of reprogramming your limiting beliefs with new empowering ones. AntonWisbicki.com/virtual events. The death of the old self. Remember, the subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between what you are thinking and feeling compared to what's actually happening in your environment. Now, does this mean you feel zero uncertainty as you adopt these new beliefs and identities inside of yourself before you see the results? No. There will be a level of uncertainty because you are in the unknown, and it will be impossible to predict the next moment. And the brain is not the biggest fan of that process. But the new uncertainty manifests as a result of, quote, "what if I can," instead of, quote, "what if I can't." As you leap into this new self, there's a new program running. So what you're going up against is residual beliefs and identities that are starting to prune away. In a very real sense, it's a biological death of the old self. Neurons that no longer fire together, no longer wire together. This is how change occurs. Again, I highly recommend you make the decision to join me so you can begin to shift your identity. Let your knowledge lead to action. Go now to AntonWisbicki.com/virtual events. Reflections and looking forward. Your beliefs hold the key to unlocking your true potential. In the previous chapter, we explored the power of shifting brainwaves, repetition, fear, emotionally elevated experiences, suggestion, symbolism, storytelling, and metaphors as a tool to delve into the subconscious realm. Each method has its own unique way of shaping your beliefs and influencing your actions. By altering your brainwaves through meditation or engaging in thoughtful activities, you will create an environment for a profound transformation to occur. Repetition allows you to rewire your subconscious identities, while fear, when harnessed correctly, can serve as a driving force toward greatness or a disempowering invisible prison. Emotionally elevated experiences enables you to tap into the power of gratitude and expand your perception of yourself and your potential. Furthermore, suggestion, whether hypnosis or the power of the placebo, demonstrates the incredible impact of your beliefs on your mind and your body. Symbolism speaks directly to your subconscious, bypassing language barriers and invoking deep emotions. And storytelling, the language of our souls, holds the power to shape your reality and transform your life. Metaphors and analogies can swiftly establish connections within the mind, reintegrating two concepts that are typically disempowering and unrelated. In the next chapter, we delve deeper into the central role of beliefs in influencing your actions. Regardless of your goals or aspirations, our unwavering belief in the possibilities fuels our commitment and propels us forward. Whether you believe in the likelihood of success or the lack of it, your beliefs ultimately determine your actions and shape your outcomes. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. Join me as we explore the profound influence of beliefs and how they serve as the driving force behind your decisions and achievements. By understanding the power of your beliefs, you can unlock a world of limitless potential and create the future you desire.